Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Red Bulls Experience podcast. I'm joined with my second co-host, James Birle of WFUV Sports, Fordham Soccer, play-by-play, Puck on the Parkway podcast. Like, is there anything else that I'm missing? I'm just like, I know all the stuff you got going on.
That's pretty much it, man. It's a healthy intro. I appreciate that. Happy to be joining you, being the second co-host. It's been some good work so far, and I've been following the page for a while. So yeah, happy to break down some New York soccer with you.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm happy to have you on, and it's still new at the whole podcasting thing. So like going around the Red Bull media cohort and just kind of getting a bunch of different voices on. So excited to get into it. But basically, we are in a very dark period for the New York Red Bulls. Not to be dramatic, but the past 2 weeks have not really been a glittering period in obviously Red Bulls history, and then of course in the 2024 season, probably one of the biggest lows we've faced. And whatever, we're gonna get into the past few weeks. We're gonna preview Decision Day and just hope that there's a way that the Red Bulls can turn it around. So basically, we're just going to start and get it out of the way. September 28th, 2024 was the worst loss in Red Bull Arena history. I spent Sunday morning, the next day, fact-checking it and going through and seeing, like, was there a worse loss we've had? We had, I actually forgot about this, but we had a 5-2 loss against Orlando in, was that 2016? Something like that.
2016. That sounds right.
16 or 17. So if we had scored one more goal against NYCFC, we would have equaled that result. But because we didn't, it goes back to May 2008, which was a 5-1 loss at Giant Stadium. So the Red Bulls have not faced a defeat that large in 16 years. So we've now exchanged, us and NYCFC have dealt the other one, their biggest loss in home history. The Red Wedding for them, and then now whatever they're going to dub this match for us. But yeah, we also clinched the playoffs that night in a really funny, ironic, cruel twist of fate. I had my graphic ready, and I was like, oh, wait, we actually, like, the 6th out of 7th scenario happened, and I can post this right now. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. What were your takeaways from that game, if any?
Well, I first and foremost, I remember you showing me the clinched graphic on the path ride home from a game.
Yeah.
I can't remember which game.
Yeah, it was the Atlanta game. So I had it ready like a week before. Yeah.
I remember, and we were like, this will probably happen sooner rather than later. And then it took a little bit longer than we thought. And then in the most unlikely and probably worst possible scenario for them to clinch the playoffs. But just to go back to the Derby, I think trying to remember the sentiment before the game. It's always the Derby. You're always excited. I don't think anybody was like really got the sense though, like we're gonna run through them. We're gonna murder them. I feel like I've remembered in years past at the Derby, like just fans being so excited about the opportunity of, well, we could kill them and it could be the best weekend of our season. And I just didn't feel that hope. I didn't feel that anticipation from the fans in the lead up. And I guess the players probably felt it too, because the start of that match is probably the worst start to a New York Red Bulls game ever. I mean, the giveaway from Coronel on the Morales goal, Alonso Martinez, I mean, he's had a great season. Hats off to him. I think he's worked his way back into discussions with the Costa Rica national team. And I would never take anything away from him, but the Red Bulls made him look like Messi, and they've played against Messi. So that's a bit worrying, and they just they got a consolation back. They made it respectable for a moment with Banzer's goal, and he continued to score goals, having scored against Atlanta prior. So that was good to see him continue to get on the score sheet. But there was just I'm grasping at straws if I'm trying to pull positives out of this game. They didn't look like they were up for it from the start, and that is the most concerning. And I got to give credit to Nick Cushing, who, while hasn't been a fantastic coach, did turn this team around at a certain point in May, and they were up for this game. And that's what it takes in a derby. It's all in here. I'm pointing to my heart.
Yeah.
It's all in there. And I don't think that there was much heart to be spoken of for the Red Bulls, unfortunately. So I guess that's it is what it is. And the following weeks represented a chance for them to maybe turn it around, right? Like, can we see a bounce back result? And they got that against Toronto. But they weren't able to follow that up against Atlanta, and now they put themselves in a really precarious situation in terms of seeding for the playoffs now on decision day.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, well, going back to what you were saying about the worst start in a Red Bulls game ever, I think the only other one I can really think of is the beginning of the 2015 playoff series against Columbus.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
We know how that series ends. We know how all the series end in our entire history. But yeah, I think it was the first time we had conceded. I saw some stat somewhere. That was like the first time the Red Bulls had conceded 2 goals within like that quick span, whether it was like 7 minutes or however many minutes it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, the guys weren't up to it from the start. I just think it was. I had never really seen the team not really live up to a game like that. I was expecting a close, like it could have been a 0-0 game. It could have been a 1-1 game. Just the floodgates fully open. Credit to Nick Cushing, as you said. They've been really patient with him, and they've been going on a good run now this past week. Yeah, I think if we pivot to midweek and talk about the Toronto game for the Red Bulls, Emil Forsberg's first start in months and fully paid off. You get his penalty kick goal, Lewis Morgan goal, JMI, Elias Manuel, like great goals from the right people, and it seemed like we bounced back. We kind of took we took that punch to the face, we sat with it, and we responded. And then going down to Atlanta, the minute management for Emil Forsberg from Sandro Schwartz. I mean, he mentioned that earlier in the week that he might not be fully playing Emil from the first minute for all these games, but yeah, just nothing really went our way. I mean, I'm not typically someone to really be like pointing my finger at the referee, and honestly, I think a few of the calls were justified, and I'm not really going to argue with. I think the Dylan Neal's red card, like, kind of soft,
Harsh.
but I'm also like, I'm not gonna like go to Twitter and be mad about that.
Yeah,
like it was kind of in the middle for
yeah.
me. And then the offside goals, his first Elias's first one, was it offside? I don't really know. Second one, definitely offside. So it's like, but a lot of VAR decisions, a lot of things that just outside of the flow of the game with the refereeing that kind of halted the pace of the Red Bulls there.
Yeah, I think it's tough. Any match like that, you look at the red card that was given. I think you can make a case for that being soft. And with the winning goal having come so late, and then not the equalizer, the consolation really from Goma having come so late, it's really tough to then look at the match and say, well, if this call goes this way, that call goes the other way.
Right.
I don't like playing that game. I don't think the Red Bulls have been, in a position where they can say, well, if the refs gave us this call, that call, and this call in these few games, that they'd be in a better position than they are. The reality is they've shot themselves in the foot, and I don't want to be doom and gloom and say that's on the players, because I mean the struggles with the ownership and front office from the team have been very voiced by the fans now, and and this isn't, I'm not just talking about when it's happened this season. I'm talking every season since 2018, really, where you've heard the fans crying out to the ownership and executive of the groups and say, hey, look, these are the demands we have. We've not been good enough. And in part, some of those demands were met, but in large part, most of them weren't met. And I think that was mostly reminded by the New York City result. The fans were starting to say, hey, this is kind of an embarrassment, and it's a compounding issue of all these problems we've talked about, not paying more investment into bigger players, not getting established goal scorers that we know we can rely on. And while Van Zer had a great goal scoring record when they brought him in from Belgium, has now had 2 seasons albeit an injury-plagued and scandal-plagued 2023, has now had 2 seasons where he hasn't really looked up for it. Forsberg is a big-name player, but outside of him, they didn't really bring in anybody else that moved the needle. Carballo, as a lone, a DP player, has had experience playing in some big teams and big competitions, both with the Uruguay national team and with Gremio. But I haven't seen enough from him to suggest that he's the guy who brings this team up another level in central midfield. Probably has less of an influence on this team than Frankie Amaya did, and for him to be using a DP spot, I think is worrying when they really should have probably looked into the attack to improve this squad. So I mean, I basically didn't answer anything about this game because I feel like
it's just a larger issue. Yeah,
seeing this. It's a larger issue where, yes, I think that red card could have been downgraded to yellow, but am I convinced that them getting a 1-1 result out of this game or a 0-0 draw out of this game, is it then all of the sudden like they're in a much better position? Like, no, they'd still be level on points with Charlotte in 6th place,
right? Exactly.
In the Eastern Conference, a team that they really should have no business being level with on points, considering how well they started the first 14, 15 games of the season. So again, they only have themselves to blame, and we could nitpick the details from these matches, but it's been 33 games this season now, plus 2 Leagues Cup games. We've seen the patterns develop for long enough, and they kind of go beyond just 2024. So I think we're getting in circles again, and for me, that's what's becoming the most frustrating thing.
Yeah,
being a supporter of this club.
Yeah, no, for sure, and just going in circles. Like what you were saying, I was figuring this out, and obviously we have 1 game left, but let's say the Red Bulls lose against Columbus on decision day, which is very likely.
Mm-hmm.
They would only finish 4 points and 1 place in the standings above where they did last year, which was a season that was capped off with the very front-facing statement that we are going to be, and this is a quote from the statement, targeting players from all over the world again. They brought in Emil Forsberg, which great signing. On paper, we are in the top 10 of spending in the league again, which is fantastic. On paper, we have 3 DP slots filled for the first time since Josh Sims, Kaku, and Bradley Wright Phillips. So on paper, all of those things, like Red Bull ownership can make the argument, hey, look, we're in the top 10 of spending.
We
have 3 DPs.
Yeah, we did it.
We did it. We didn't pick the U22 initiative model like you thought we would. Haha, we were going the DP route. But yeah, I mean, it's just I don't have in recent memory, obviously, such a season where there was such a significant second half collapse like this one. I mean, just really, I mean, I've just called it the summer of draws. I don't know how many draws we had. I think we had 9 in all competitions if you count the Leagues Cup games as draws.
Yeah. What did they? There were two wins, 2 losses, 9 draws.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, in all competitions.
Yeah.
So I mean, just it's just hard to really be optimistic. I think after the Toronto game, I was like, you know what, we dropped 4 on them. I know they're a bad team, but like we handled business against a team that we should beat, which is what we should be doing. And then Atlanta, yes, tough place to play, yes, but also we only have 1 regular season loss down there, and you would think we could have emerged a bit better from that one. Anyway, a positive from that game is Serge Goma on the score sheet. That's great. Happy for Serge.
Yeah,
was nice. But getting more into the ownership side of things, we've had kind of 2 polar opposites this past week or 10 days. Basically just fresh off of the Hudson River Derby defeat, we have Derek Ray tweeting about Oliver Minslav. His quote that basically was saying, MLS is developing too slowly for what we would like, and basically basically hinting at that's why we don't take it as seriously, because it's just developing too slowly. And then it's like, well, you're an owner of a team in MLS, and it is incumbent upon, well, yeah, right, one of the richest owners. You can compare the numbers with the oil money across the Hudson, but yeah, I mean, you are one of the owners. It is incumbent upon the owners to spend the money to elevate the league. So that just, like, the depression really piled on. We have the result on Saturday, and then 2 days later we get that quote from Oliver, and everyone's just like here's an idea, be part of the solution, set the standard of MLS. So we were just like, that was, I mean, yeah, I feel like that happens a lot where we have a bad performance and then some quote from ownership comes out and it just like the fans just are up in arms again. So I don't know how you really took that. I mean, your head was in your hands there, so.
Yeah, the timing of it all, like you mentioned, it happening right after the derby. There was what every fan was already saying, was just confirmed in writing.
Yeah, exactly.
Quote, straight from the horse's mouth. Like it couldn't have been more disastrously poetic, right? It bothered me, but it didn't surprise me.
I mean, nothing about it was surprising at all.
Right. What indication have you gotten from the ownership of Red Bull that they consider the New York Red Bulls to be an asset? They kind of just let them do their own thing over there. They throw some money at the academy every now and then. But in this Mintzlaff quote was in reference to not only the club in general and the allure it has, but specifically about bringing young players through the system, which is something that a lot of fans still criticize Red Bull for. They think the New York Red Bulls are a feeder club, and I don't think that's true at all. Exactly. Because there's only been 2 players to go from New York through the system.
It is the myth,
and one of them didn't work out.
Yes, it is the myth that I am in the comment section fighting with people on, reminding people that, hey, we've only sent 2 players, one who was like actually from our academy, Caden Clark, we plucked from the Barcelona residence.
Kid from Minnesota.
Yeah, right. Kid from Minnesota was in like the Barcelona, like Arizona residence academy or something out there.
We're a weird soccer country.
Yeah, and then he goes to RB Leipzig. He's not really an academy product. He's not considered a homegrown. The only homegrown that we have sent is Tyler Adams. And then everyone just thinks, oh, we're a feeder club. That's all they care about. If anything, we have borrowed so much more from Salzburg, Leipzig, nothing really from Brazil, but some of them
I'm trying to
busts, some of them regular starters.
Who were the last few guys we brought in from Europe through the Red Bulls? I remember, obviously Frederick Gulbranson was one. Yeah. Samuel Tete was another.
Yuba Diarra in 2021. I mean, Carlos is Salzburg. So Carlos Cornell, regular
that's a big one.
Starter, big one. And then, well, obviously Emil Forsberg. And Mark Tchaikovsky too. One of my favorites.
Tchaikovsky, that's right.
Legend.
Right, that's right.
So I think he actually worked out. He was
Streets will not forget.
Yeah, he is a Streets will not forget player. I loved his set pieces. Just like a great, just a great presence on this roster. So it works out sometimes. You have the Omer Damari guys. You have all the people who really don't work out. But yeah, we haven't sent anyone really to other Red Bull clubs. No. And yes, I admire the investment in the new training facility. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be, our current one is basically outdated in a sense for the robust academy we have, and it's just going to really elevate this club so much. But you just need to see that holistic investment across all areas, and not just really in the academy. But that being said, I am excited for 2025 and seeing the new crib for the boys. But yeah, so anyway, then we have the bombshell news this week. On Wednesday morning, I woke up and you see that Jürgen Klopp has joined Red Bull Soccer as the global CEO or head of global soccer at Red Bull, which was genuinely surprising. I mean, he was linked to the U.S. men's national team basically 2 months ago, if even, and then now is not taking a sideline managerial role and is taking more of a management of soccer role. And honestly, just incredibly surprising for me. I'm sure he probably made a lot of people in Germany upset that he is joining Red Bull.
Ever. Yeah.
What I'm not really sure how that's going down, but I mean, look, you can argue how much his impact will touch New York, and the cynic side of us doubts that really will happen, but just ultimately, like, such a breath of fresh air and such a real guy to join the forces over in Austria, and it's honestly, it's exciting for me just to have his name be linked with us, even if it's nothing really related to New York. But I don't know. What were your takeaways from that midweek?
Well, I think it can't be a bad thing,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
If it doesn't affect New York, it doesn't affect New York. Having a mind like Jürgen Klopp at the head of global soccer, global football, whatever the official title is, he's going to have the big picture idea that's going to unify the club's vision across the board and the ownership's vision across the board, which, I mean, could mean one thing about the style of football that the Red Bulls end up playing, and that's something that is always uniform across Red Bull teams.
Yep.
So, in the Ralf Rangnick era, under the Red Bull umbrella, the energy drink soccer, Jesse Marsch style, proved to be successful in his time here. I think a lot of people have started to say in the past 6 seasons, the pressing style has kind of gone by the wayside in terms of bringing success. I think that there's still a pathway to find success under that style of play with more talent around it. And I think under Schwartz, that at least at the beginning part of this season, they did a lot of good stuff with the ball, not just against the ball. So I think they've already started to make that transition. And if that's one thing that Jürgen Klopp can bring about, I think that would be appreciated by a lot of the fans. And I think it could pay dividends in terms of finding success and maybe getting more out of some players that we would consider squad players, really, for the Red Bulls. Guys who have kind of stagnated in their growth and maybe haven't hit an extra gear. I think of guys like Wiki Carmona in that category. I think Cameron Harper at times has looked like a world beater, really, on the wing. And then other times just becomes another guy out there, a bit of a passenger.
Yeah.
I think part of that is the system of play that the Red Bulls have is restrictive of guys who want to go out there and express themselves a little bit more. And Harper, Carmona, those are just 2 examples, but those are those kind of guys. I think at times even Omir Fernandez was kind of undervalued a little bit because of the way that this team plays. I think Luquinhas especially was hampered by the style that this team plays. So if that is one thing that changes, I would be welcome to it. I'm sure some fans would be welcome to it. But I think for the most part, it's not going to have a dramatic shift on what goes on at the Red Bulls. The strategy from the ownership is still trying to make this a feeder club, but it's not. They want to put the investment into youth development. Sandro Schwartz has been open about that in terms of questions he's had to field with the media. So, again, I didn't think that there's anything bad that could come of it. I thought it was a bit surprising considering Klopp's background in terms of, playing for very community-oriented and managing very community-oriented clubs from Mainz, Dortmund, and Liverpool. Being very, very open and conscious about his social beliefs, really, and then how he's generally been about grassroots football support. To then take a job with Red Bull seems out of character for him.
Definitely,
in that regard. But I don't think it's it can't be a negative for the New York Red Bulls. I'm not sure it will be a positive though.
Yeah, not sure it'll be a positive, but it's just a great pickup, great soccer IQ. But yeah, I mean, I was definitely shocked as well. I think we'll see how it goes. He starts on January 1st, 2025. So, next year, if there are any big changes, maybe you could attribute it to that. But and even more news this week too. Red Bull probably purchasing Paris FC in Ligue 2. So they're really they're making a lot of moves. They just recently acquired a team in Japan that it's Omiya Ardija or something like that. So they're trying to pick up a lot more and do a lot more. So I don't know. We'll see. For anyone who wants Red Bull to go away, specifically from New York, I mean, it's not happening. And then Red Bull football as a global entity, they're still plugging away. And also just another thing that I thought of when you were talking about players in our system and restricting their freedom of expression. Like Brian White, I think everyone's like, we should have never sold Brian White.
Oh.
But it's like, if we kept Brian White, he wouldn't have turned into the goal scorer he's been at the Whitecaps. Like, it's just, it wouldn't have worked. And I actually, which is kind of funny, I actually was more impressed with Tom Barlow at the time Brian White left. Just my personal opinion. So yeah, it's the player very often, more often than not, can't necessarily supersede the system, unfortunately, in this style of play. But as you were saying, Sandro Schwartz has brought in some more nuance. Let's hope that nuance continues, and maybe next season we'll add a few more pieces. We'll see. Moving on to some other miscellaneous stuff that's happened this week. We're obviously in the international break now, so just like, we're in between games. We have an off weekend, right? So there were just some other random miscellaneous MLS things that came up this week that I wanted to touch on. So we have the 2024 year-end awards nominees, which I didn't realize each club selects like their own players and says to the league, hey, these are our guys that we want to be considered. So, for everyone who was like, I can't believe like these guys are up for awards, it's because we sent them in. But I think really the only one who is deserving of a shot is Lewis Morgan at Comeback Player of the Year. I think that's an award that shouldn't necessarily be dependent on team performance. That's really just about individual performance. Like, if you return to your form that you had before your injury or your time away or whatever, that should be enough of a reason to give you Comeback Player of the Year. And I mean, for me, Lewis Morgan definitely has been invisible in some games, especially recently, but has mostly returned pretty much exactly to his 2022 form. So I could see him maybe getting that, and wouldn't excuse a bad season, but would just be a nice little accolade for the Red Bulls that he's our guy. He's said outwardly that he loves playing here. He feels super at home here, and he's hit his stride again.
Yeah, I think that's one I would agree with. Newcomer of the year for Forsberg feels like a stretch, given that he didn't play in a lot of matches. MVP for Morgan, I think I don't mind throwing that hat into the ring, but again, too many matches where he was a non-factor. And again, I don't want to hold that against him, which is why I think he should be the favorite to win the Comeback Player of the Year shout, because he's kind of been in a role that he's not accustomed to. He's played as a striker before at times in his career, but now he's played exclusively as a striker.
Right. This
team doesn't play with out-and-out wingers, and he's an out-and-out winger, and he's still found a way to be this team's most impactful attacker, their best scorer, their most dangerous threat, in a position he's not exactly comfortable with. He's been the Red Bulls' best player this year, and having done that when he only featured in 5 games in 2023, there was no doubt in my mind that he would come back and make an impact. But when he hit the ground running like he did and just put the team on his back at times, quite literally did, I think he's got to be the Comeback Player of the Year. I think including Serge Ngoma is nice, I suppose, for him. And I'm happy that he got on the score sheet against Atlanta, but unfortunately he hasn't been around long enough to suffice winning this award. And then Noah Ayla getting a shout for defensive nominee. He won't win it, but I think he has been the Red Bulls' best and most consistent defensive piece, including the fullback position as well. So I like the recognition for him. But yeah, I think Morgan for Comeback Player of the Year is not only is he the only Red Bull who might win, I think he should absolutely win this award.
Yeah, no, I think it would be great for him to just like I love his character. I wish we kind of saw it a bit more with other players in terms of just saying, how much they enjoy it. I mean, maybe players don't fully enjoy it. We don't know everything that goes on in the locker room, but yeah, he just seems like he's at home. He's our guy. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I like seeing players locked in. Reminds me of the old days. But you'll obviously see the stories of players who have been club legends, and then their option isn't picked up at the end of the season, and they're just gone. So that's happened more often than not.
Before.
So that that could very well happen again with some more of our guys. But yeah, I think Noah Isla, great recognition for him. Obviously the typical defensive lapses you get with a young player, and I think that's totally normal. I think we've seen that with Andres Reyes as well. But I think just the biggest thing about Noah, and we've all observed this, is just his ability to bring the ball forward, and his penetrating passes, just like the vision to go forward is something that's just been really incredible. Like a beautiful part of his game, just the poise on the ball. Played some beautiful balls through. So he's only going to keep growing, and just like really excited to see his development. So honestly, if we're going by team awards, I mean, our only real newcomers were like Emil, Noah, and Dennis Yengor. I think like Emil, obviously the numbers speak for themselves, but just the amount of minutes that Noah has played and the consistency for him, I think you could even give him like the Red Bulls newcomer of the year nod over Forsberg. There could be an argument there, maybe.
I honestly would make that argument.
Yeah.
I agree with you there. I think Noah Ehle, you mentioned his passing ability. It's the best distribution of any Red Bull center back I've seen since maybe Tim Ream, which says a lot.
Yeah, wow. Damn.
In that time, like, there have been some good defenders who have come and gone, just none who really were known for their poise in possession. I think of guys like Hamasin Olave was just a rock back there. Obviously, Ibu Sakaya was a rock. Aaron Long and Tim Parker were the best center back duo in MLS in 2018 by a wide margin too. And neither of them have the ability that Noah Ehle has in terms of his ability to play with the ball at his feet. And that has been a gift to this Red Bulls team at times. It has
for sure
resulted in goals. His ability to find the striker's feet, his ability to play balls long. And there are times where he just gets involved in the attack too and just moves the ball well. I think he is an asset.
Yeah.
Has been caught at times. I think early in the season he committed that penalty against Orlando in what otherwise would have been a great road win. There
was an own goal, I think. Yeah. But
either
way, yeah.
We had a penalty against Orlando early in the season in 2023, a handball on Sean Nealis. That was kind of a bogus decision then. I'm mixing up my disappointing away results at Orlando memories. But the point remains, I've loved his game. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's a guy that will eventually make the jump back to Europe.
Probably,
but for the time being, while he's still developing, I think you could get 2-3 really good seasons out of a player like Noah Ehle, and he's going to be instrumental in success. If they find success in the playoffs this year, he's going to be at the center of that, at the heart of defense. And if they find any success in the years coming, I'd expect him to be the anchor for this team on the back line.
Yeah, no, yeah, agree with everything. He's away with the Sweden U21 team this weekend. Just, I mean, we're recording this on Friday. He just basically had good win with them yesterday when we're recording this. So, yeah, in terms of Orlando away results, I mean, the main one that stands out to me is the Open Cup semifinal.
Don't say Open Cup.
So, we're like throughout this podcast, it's reminding me of this heartbreak and this heartbreak and that heartbreak.
Awful memories.
So, yeah, that yeah, I'm gonna eventually rank my like top 10 heartbreaking moments, and that's gonna be a terrible watch for everyone or listen. But that'll be up there.
Knowing this fan base, we do quite a bit of sadness, like engagement baiting. I think I'm not saying that that's what you're doing.
Yeah,
I'm saying that we enjoy having things to complain about as fans of the New York Red Bulls.
There's no shortage.
I think there's no shortage. This is why, to have all the saddest, heartbreaking moments in ranked form in a video, I think people would enjoy having the ability to look at that.
People would enjoy it, and honestly, like for the new fans, it is a type of initiation. And when I started becoming a fan, even then, I could have been initiated on the past basically 15 seasons before I really started paying attention. Anyway, another thing that happened this week, we had the 22 under 22 rankings, which is like not like super, blockbuster Major League Soccer, but just a nice acknowledgement of the 22 best, basically young players in the league, and for a team that very much prides itself on the youth. To me, it's a barometer of where we're kind of at as an academy, maybe more so than other clubs who don't necessarily prioritize the academy as much. So Daniel Edelman making his second consecutive appearance on the list. This year he's number 11. And I had a graphic ready for Julian Hall because I thought he might break in there. Still think he's like probably a bit too young and hasn't had the consistent minutes that would really warrant him a spot. But yeah, just curious overall. So like, what you think about these rankings? If you really care, if it really matters, if it's just kind of a fun thing that MLS does, and your thoughts on the selections.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm in the camp like it's cool to see which players get recognized and which ones don't. I think it'd be silly to dive into this and argue that Jack McGlynn should be 2 and Diego Luna should be 3.
Yeah.
You know, these are all good players who are all going to have a future in the sport. I think if we really did want to get into who should go where, I would have takes about some guys being too high on the list, some guys being too low.
Mm-hmm.
I think Daniel Edelman at 11 is pretty fair.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with his inclusion on this list. I think Julian Hall, yeah, I think it's the way you said it is fair. He's 16, still, a ways from being amongst the higher class of young players in this league. That is really like the Red Bulls aren't the only team that are about youth development. I mean, they make that they beat it into the ground, but a lot of other teams really pride themselves on having young players and young rosters. And there's the entire league more or less is represented on this on this list. I do think Kevin Sullivan being on here at 15, number 18th on the list, I mean, has the deal with Man City. The name recognition alone could put him on this list.
But not indicative of his MLS minutes by any stretch, yeah.
And Christian McFarland's got, I think 8 appearances, the young left back for New York City FC. He's going to have a very long career. He's going to make a move to Man City as well, I believe. I think he's in that pipeline. So I understand why some of these guys were there, but you mentioned Julian Hall. He's a guy who's gotten both goals and assists now at 16. A little bit young, but I don't know why he's maybe not 22 or 21 on this list. Maybe a snub, but I don't think that it's anything to complain about because he'll be on one of these lists very soon.
Yeah, no, he has like 5-6 more years to be on this list. he will be eligible until basically 2029, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to the final regular season game. Decision day. Not really much to play for. We will only face an Ohio opponent in the playoffs, whether that be FC Cincinnati, who we have faced in the previous 2 years, or the Columbus Crew. And both are trending in different directions. Cincinnati's really not had the juice recently, and they've kind of stagnated in third place. But Columbus, they're flying. Just missed out on the Supporters Shield, but we will be facing one of those teams. And if it does end up being Columbus, if the Red Bulls don't take care of business against Columbus on decision day, and Charlotte don't drop points against DC, we will be stuck in 7th place, and we'll be facing Columbus, and we'll be playing at least 3, maybe 4 consecutive games against Columbus, including decision day, which would be kind of, I think, a first maybe. That'd be interesting. I think there isn't like so much to play for. It's definitely one of the decision days I'm the least excited about, and I don't know, just kind of want to put the regular season behind us. How important do you think this game is just in a momentum sense for the Red Bulls? Obviously, the results, there's not much to play for, but just getting a good performance. Maybe it's a draw against the top team in Columbus. Maybe they can scrape by with a win somehow, but just on a purely momentum level before round 1. What do you think we have to play for really on decision day?
I think personally, you really want to finish sixth and not seventh. I think
For sure.
playing Cincinnati, who are a bit more vulnerable, like you mentioned, is one. But also, those guys ate our lunch three of the last knockout tournaments, right?
Yeah.
They took us down in the Open Cup, they took us down in the playoffs, and they took us down in the playoffs. So there should be some hatred there, and we kind of have their number in the regular season going back the past several seasons.
Hmm.
Took the double over them, both in their place and our place this year. So that's a team that you know that you can beat. You might have a psychological edge over. Even with Frankie Amaya now transferred away from the club, they won't have anything to complain
Yeah,
about
they have
over.
no one to boo. It's yeah,
Right.
I don't know.
So I really think that that has to be the mentality. You don't want to play Columbus over a three-game stretch. Cincinnati over a three-game stretch is feels a lot more winnable to me. So I think that there is something to play for in terms of the table. And I hate to say this, but with DC United playing for their playoff lives, there's a chance you might get some help with them in terms of a result. I don't rate this Charlotte team very high, and I think the Red Bulls have no business being beneath them in the table. Now, with that said, I also want to see not just momentum for the team heading into the playoffs, but can we get results at home again? I mean, we were
Yeah.
talking for most of the season about
Yeah.
how in 2023 the Red Bulls were, this team that did so well on the road but couldn't win at home. And it kind of flipped. They were middle of the road when they were in away matches, and they started to win at home again. They were unbeaten for 12 matches at Red Bull Arena, or
Yeah.
maybe 11.
Yeah, no, I think it got up to 12, yeah.
I think it got up to 12,
Yeah.
which was something that this team seriously missed for several seasons. Something that made Red Bull Arena a fortress, the best home field advantage since 2010 when it was built. So to have that back meant so much to this team in the early part of the season. Now they haven't won a home game since Cincinnati on July 20th. So it's been really bad. Really, really bad. They played two League Cups games too that they couldn't win either. So for me, that this represents an opportunity where you can have a statement win against the second best team in the league at home leading into the playoffs, and it could make you avoid them in the playoffs. There's a lot to play for. A lot's going to have to go right, and they're going to be up against it. I don't think they're going to see a lot of the ball in this match, and I
Hmm.
think that Columbus, I don't know if they're going to be playing a full squad or whatnot, but with the international break, I don't see why they wouldn't play a big squad. It's also with the MLS wildcard now, they get that rest. It's not like they have to play right away, right after the decision day. So I think the Red Bulls aren't going to be given any favors from Wilfred Nancy and his team. Um, but that's not to say that they shouldn't believe that they can go out there, get a result, and find a way to finish in sixth and avoid playing the Crew in the playoffs, because I'd much rather have them get a chance at some revenge on Cincinnati.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I appreciate that perspective because I think the cynic in me, I'm just like, there's not much to play for, dude. Like, it's
Yeah.
either sixth or seventh. But no, I mean, I think you spin it a great way. I think, yeah, Cincinnati are just, I don't know if you call it a tailspin, but they're just losing to teams below them and not really putting up convincing performances. And so yeah, it'd be nice to have that revenge,
Hmm.
to advance past round one for the first time since 2018. It would be fantastic. And yeah, it's interesting too. In the regular season, you have this incredible unbeaten run, and it felt like a fortress. And that was obviously, you can talk about the amount of draws in that record, but up until Philadelphia on August 31st, you had no losses at home, and like it's a fortress again. And then in that same season, you also suffer the worst loss in Red Bull Arena history. So that's such an interesting contrast, just for that irony of it. It's like this is the season where we are a fortress again, and then we also have our worst loss. That really has just I just think has put a real damper on things. Unfortunately, so I don't know if I necessarily have optimism for decision day, but um, I think my main thing is it'd be great to just get a nice crowd. Um,
Hmm.
just have a good showing at home, and hopefully Emil Forsberg starts. There's no reason for him not to start. I mean, he didn't start against Atlanta. You have a week off this weekend with the international week, and then just have him
He's not with
him.
Sweden.
Yeah, he's not with Sweden exactly. He's not going to break his foot again. So yeah, just start him. Just like 60, 70, 75 minutes. Just really see what this team can be with him dictating the tempo, just like how it was in the first half of the season. I think that's really the only hope I'm holding on for, is if we can get a convincing performance out of him and everyone around him. He would really be the only reason why we could make some noise in the playoffs. So otherwise, just looking forward to having all the seedings settle and figuring out our matchup, and will we be one and done in terms of round? Thankfully, the new format means we can have 2 weeks of Red Bull playoff soccer and not one and done, like it was from 2019 to 2022. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So weird month for the Red Bulls. One chance left to really turn things around, and yeah, our 15th consecutive MLS Cup playoffs appearance. The one thing, anything is possible. I'm not saying that this is the year, but the one year we made MLS Cup was through being the last seed in the East, getting bounced over to the West, and somehow making it to MLS Cup. So, it's a crazy league. Anything is possible. Anyone can hit their stride at any time, and we'll see how it goes. So, 6 p.m. Saturday, October 19th, against the Columbus Crew at Red Bull Arena. The New York Red Bulls closing out their 2024 regular season, looking to finish in 6th place, hopefully leapfrogging Charlotte FC. If not, a date with Columbus awaits in the playoffs. So that's all I've got. James, have any final words for the fans? Any words of wisdom? Anything to leave us off on?
Well, look, I don't know if there's any fans of baseball out there, but I will say this.
Yes, yeah.
For most of this season, the sentiment around the New York Mets was that they were dead in the water, that they were too talented for their own good, and they had some good, shiny players amongst a team of garbage. And that kind of sounds like the feeling around the Red Bulls right now. I'm not saying that the Red Bulls are going to become the best team in MLS for a 6-month run like the Mets did in baseball. But if you believe and you got a good vibe around you, things can turn in the world of sports. If you believe in the Mets, why not believe in the Red Bulls, right? So,
hell yeah.
If you don't have belief in your heart, I understand where you're coming from. I've been there. I've been there within the past couple weeks with this team, believe me. But if you think that I'm not going into Red Bull Arena on the second match day of round 1 with full belief that we're going to go in there, get a win, and force a game 3, or maybe we've already won game 1 and we're through to the next round, you got another thing coming, guys. I will never stop believing in this team, no matter how much the ownership, front office bothers me, squad selections, whatever it may be, playing style. This is my club. I believe in them, and I think that they're going to have their work cut out for them, but all the best teams do. And if they can prove to me that they're worthy of it, they're going to have to go through one of those big teams from Ohio, and maybe they can avoid Inter Miami until the conference final, should they get their fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But I know this is more optimistic than it should be for us, but this is why we're fans. This is why we love the game. This is why we love our team.
Yeah, no, I mean, loyalty over everything. Yeah, it's our club. I mean, in my case, this wasn't really by choice. I was born into it. So yeah, no, we're here as long as we're breathing, to echo a decade-old piece of marketing from the club. And yeah, let's go for it. Decision day, and then our 15th consecutive MLS Cup playoffs appearance. So it has been Luca from the Red Bulls Experience. Follow James Birle on all socials, and follow WFUV Sports, and tune into a few Fordham soccer games if you can. So
ESPN Plus.
Yeah, ESPN Plus. So yeah, no, I mean, does a great job over there. Yeah, no, it's great. So yeah, thank you, James, for coming on. Thank you all for listening and maybe watching. And we'll see you guys post decision day before the playoffs.